just like that, another week has gone by. And the benefit of doing a show on Friday is Friday happens every week. And at the end of the next week, there'll be another Friday. It's your boy, Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector. Here every single Friday morning, I make the trek. I make the trek up from the first floor. I grab some coffee. I think I've been down there 3 times to get more coffee, but I make the trek up here to the attic. That is the room just below the roof of my house. We call it the attic. I didn't make up that term, but about 4 or 5 years ago, somebody locked me up here in the beginning of COVID, and they let me out every now and again for some coffee. But I have this incredible opportunity to meet with nonprofit executive leaders every Friday in the show. But to be honest with you, it's pretty much every day I'm hanging out in the nonprofit sector. I got to visit Sib's Place this week, which is a really important organization here on Long Island, um, for family members, siblings who have either a parent or a sibling who is experiencing going through cancer treatment right now. It's a really, really special organization here on Long Island. They're one of the finalists in the Long Island Imagine Awards. Shout out to Vanguard Benefits, our company, the Vanguard Benefits Rising Star Award. I went to the Woodward School, which is a school for young people with different abilities and some challenges and maybe some behavioral issues, things like that, really pouring into those children with what they need. I mean, early on Monday, I went to Nosh here in Glen Head, not far from where I am, but up in Glen Cove here on Long Island. And I went to it's a food pantry, and I got to meet the team there. Again, another finalist in the Vanguard Benefits Rising Star Award. Shout out to Long Island Imagine Awards. April 29th, just a few weeks from now, you can show up if you're close enough to Long Island and you want to travel. Connect with me. Gonna have 500 people there, 80 or 90 different nonprofits represented, and my team at Vanguard Benefits and I are always thrilled to have the opportunity to sponsor these events. So, look, I don't know what else to tell you. I am the nonprofit sector connector. I know it because I made it up and because I had it printed on my business card, and it's a hashtag. So I know it's mine. I made it up. So if you see anybody out there trying to fake you out and say that they're the nonprofit sector connector, call me up. We'll deal with that whole situation. But I will say this, more and more people that I spend time with and I hang out with are also, to be real with you, are also nonprofit sector connectors. I hang out with people who are doing the good work. I hang out with people who are making connections. Shout out to Kellyanne Serini, my friend over at Serini and Associates. She runs all the marketing over there. She's always like trying to hook me up and connect me with people. And she's like, Tommy D, it'd be great to have this person on your show. It'd be great to have that person on your show. So it's actually funny because that's kind of how we get here. My guest is Sophia Shaw, Sophia from PlanPerfect. We're going to get into the conversation, but I feel like I must say hello to you first before I continue my rant. Good morning. How are you? What's going on?
Good morning. Everything's great. So nice to be on your show. You are the nonprofit connector, that's for sure.
I appreciate it. Well, it's so cool too because I started talking about Kellyanne Serini, start talking about Serini Associates. That rolls right into the Nonprofit Resource Hub, which is an organization that we founded, which is a trade association. Ken Serini, David Goldstein, Ken Serini from Serini Associates, David Goldstein from Sir Tillman Ballin, myself and my business partner Ed Probst and our other partner Vinny Blasi were part of the founding team, and Christine Deska and Frank Orzo over at Nonprofit Sector Strategies. Christine is one of my closest collaborators. I love you, Christine. It's so cool hanging out with you. We call each other brother and sister. I always say we're like family. So appreciate that. But it's the thing where we have these different members, what we call associate members, who are business professionals, what I like to say best of breed in different industries, that bring resources to our nonprofit partners. About 450, 460 nonprofit members, part of that group. I don't talk about NRH all that much on the show, so I'm ranting on it now, but go to nonprofitresourcehub.org or send your boy an email, Tommy D at Philanthropy in Focus, Phocus. And we spell out with a PH. Right? That's philanthropy in focus. Tommy D at philanthropyinfocus.com. Finish the whole statement, kid. All right, let's get after it. So this show is always about a leader of a nonprofit organization, except when it isn't. So today is one of those exceptions, an exception in a positive way. Sophia Shaw has been an executive in nonprofits for a number of years. She now co-founded this company, PlanPerfect, which we're going to get into today. I promise you all we're going to get into it. It is a great solution for small, medium, and sometimes larger nonprofit organizations, but we will talk about it soon, I promise. But I always feel until we tell the story, until we set the context, the rest doesn't make sense. So let's get into it. Sophia, I have notes. I mean, certified paratriathlon, open water, and excuse me, certified paratriathlon and open water swimming coach, mental health hotline volunteer, hashtag ending the stigma, gang. You know it. Hashtag ending the stigma together. So we're going to get into, hopefully, we talk about some of the mental health stuff that's going on out there. Decades of experience as a CEO, trustee, board member, board president, donor, et cetera, et cetera. You've done the work in the space. And I only et cetera it because I want you to tell the story, not me to tell your story. So really, we've talked about this, you and I, earlier this week. And I want to know how you got to where you are. I always know there's, I'll tell you a funny story. I will attempt to tell several of those this morning, but this particular one, I used to buy comic books and put them in a plastic thing and close them. And I've never opened them. I've never read a comic book in my life, right? So I don't want to say I used to like read comic books, but I used to collect comic books. And I'm aware of all that Marvel movies and the stuff that comes out, right? And there's always that Genesis story, right? Like I want to make a comic book. Man, this is so silly. Tommy D comic book and the Genesis story. Where did the nonprofit sector connector come from? Mick Collins, I'm sure you're working on it right now. Mick Collins, my buddy over Pay It Forward Processing. He always likes to chime in during the show. What is the Sophia Shaw story? How does it happen? We'll get into how that evolves into what PlanPerfect is, and I'm sure that's going to be informed by all of your experiences and what you saw in the nonprofit sector. But an art history major, University of Chicago, MBA in finance from the Kellogg School of Management, at Northwestern. How did you get there? Sophia, please take it away. This is about you, not me.
Right. Well, I first want to start by thanking you for having me on the show and also thanking the Nonprofit Resource Hub for welcoming my co-founder of PlanPerfect, Adam Wolford, and I to your group. We felt the group is really wonderful. And when we found it online, we thought, wow, we would love to be part of it. So thanks, everybody, for having us and embracing us, even though we're not from New York and Long Island, but my son's at NYU, so maybe I'm honorary for that.
You know what? I think you and I plan we might run into each other later this spring, I think.
I hope so. And I don't think I'm quite ready to root for the Mets, but I do, I do have friends now who do.
And now you have two friends. You told me a friend went down to Houston. We were talking the other day for the other opening day, like the road opening day. But I want to say, I'm going to Google something real quick, right live on the show. We're just going to Google stuff. Yeah, shout out to Google. They don't sponsor the show, but you probably all have heard of it before. I wonder when the Cubbies are going to be at Citi Field is what I'm Googling.
Right, that would be fun.
Yeah, so I got it right here, super quick. Gang, Tommy, you're doing a show. Yeah, I know, but we're networking too. So May 9th and May 10th, and May 11th, the Cubs will be in Queens. I'm just saying, I don't know what that means. And then the Metsies are out in Chicago, which is what a cool city. They're out in Chicago, September, end of the season, 23, 24, 25. I don't know. You and I will text later. We'll figure this out.
Okay.
Maybe you'll be on Strong Island or in that other island, Manhattan, visiting with your son in the spring. Anyway, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay. So, with LinkedIn and Google, we all know each other's stories now. It's so easy. So when we were just having a quick chat before this call, you said something last night that really moved me. You mentioned this hero story.
Yeah.
Was that in the comic
Yes,
book?
we talked about it yesterday. That's right. Yeah.
We did. And so as I was thinking about coming on the show today, I thought, well, why don't we just sort of throw away some of the rules of the bio? I also felt in listening to your show and getting to know you a little bit, that you're really so present and invested in not only philanthropy, but making the world a better place and bringing people together. So I thought I might just start with the hero story in a different way, in that I feel like maybe some of the people in their mid-50s on the line will recognize this, but our Gen X, we really grew up in much more of a latchkey world. Our parents were in many cases both working, or there was sort of a freedom revolution of our moms. And I think what the result was is a lot of us were really left alone a lot of. And so I feel like my origin story or my hero story starts off with spending a tremendous amount of time alone as a child. Not lonely. I mean, I can entertain myself forever, but alone. And my career then maybe builds off of that. I felt fairly alone through being young. My mom moved a lot. My parents got divorced. My mom moved to the Caribbean. I sat on a beach by myself a lot. I mean, it like, learned how to scuba dive by myself. And I mean, it was a, kind of an interesting youthful experience. And it even in college, I felt like I was kind of roaming around a little bit till I met a woman who's now really my best friend. And she's like you, she's a person connector. And she really showed me that I didn't need to be the solo actor in the world, that I could find a way to connect people together. And until then, my ambitions professionally were I had this dream of being an admiral in the Navy. It was only because when I was living in Barbados, the USS Eisenhower came to port and we got a ride on. I was like, I'm gonna be the solo admiral of the Navy. I'm going to be a marine biologist. So then I felt at that point, no, I don't need to do that. I want to be part of the world, and gravitated to the nonprofit sector, and I've never left it. I've had just a couple little jobs in for profit and started this company, but other than that, I've been trying to go on the road of finding how to make people feel good about the world, feel good about themselves, feel good about touching other people, whether that is just metaphorically or even holding hands.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in a meeting yesterday. Thank you for all that. At the Caribbean, Barbados, scuba diving, so much there. The evolution, I'll call it my word if I may, that evolution of I'm a solo act. Like I saw you up on, I don't know what they call it up on like the Intrepid or what did you say, the Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Like up on the brig or I is like up on top, like I guess that is if you think of it like that is a leadership spot, but it's also a solo spot. You're up there alone, right? And interesting and your friend and sounds like mentor in some ways. It's so great how we could shove each other in a positive way. I have a business partner in one of the projects we do called the Professionals and Animal Lovers Show, and I don't think she'd be upset because she says it's in person, but I have pushed her out of her comfort zone so many times, and I think it's a blessing that I get to do that because you know what? Life begins outside of your comfort zone. I say it all the time, right? I was on a meeting yesterday doing the typical Tommy D thing. It was a networking thing, the whole schmooze, right? And this woman was like, "Oh my God, you left me in the being cute. You left me in the waiting room while you guys already started the meeting." I go, "No, no, no, not at all, no." And I go, "Let me give you a virtual hug." And I gave her, and she gave herself a hug, and it was like this thing. And you talk about like holding hands and connection. Dude, I love to give people hugs, but I'm also cognizant of, hey, are we hugging? You mind? Can I give you a hug? Because we got to be mindful because not everybody wants you up in their world, up in their space, right? Even if you are the nonprofit sector connector, not everybody wants to hug me. I don't understand. I do understand. Of course I do. But I'm mindful yesterday, 2 days ago, I'm taking a photo with somebody and I said, may I? May I do the arm around the shoulder? We have to be thoughtful about what people want. There is our personal space, right? However, there is so much when it comes to touch, man. I just need a hug a lot of the time. I need that love, man. Grab people, hug them if they want to be hugged. Don't just grab people and hug them. I mean, it's a whole nother deal. But like, do that because it's loving and it's compassion. And, you know, I believe we're all always evolving and growing and learning. So, like, when you say lonely versus being alone, I love to be alone, right? And I absolutely love to be with people, right? But like there's a time and a place for all of it. I was just on a call with a friend of mine this morning, going through some stuff. And I said, listen, I'm not telling you that you should meditate. I'm not telling you that you should run on the treadmill. I'm not telling you that you should walk your dog, but there's something there. I have friends who really get their meditation, running 5 miles in the morning. Whatever that thing is, like do that. Because if anybody tells me that they can't meditate and they know me and I do meditate, I don't want to hear it. I'm a wild man, right? But I can get quiet and silent. So what I'm just trying to say is you said so much there, the alone versus lonely. I gotta ask you. I mean, my big question, really, and we'll split for a moment and we'll come back. You can answer when we come back, though. I love to tease everybody, keep them right on the edge of their seats. Barbados, man. I thought it was cool. I live on an island, man, but like not like that. I just want to. How long did you live there before we go to break?
My mother lived there, so about 4 years.
So, okay, so you weren't living there for the whole 4 years?
No, I was in boarding school,
Okay, you got it. All right. So,
which was a wonderful experience, but
that's a whole nother story too. So we
that's
got,
a whole other story. But
yeah,
yeah.
we're gonna talk Barbados. We're talk boarding school. I've never gone scuba diving before. There's a story. My grandparents used to have this house out here on Long Island. They had a built-in pool, and my dad's cousins came by one time with scuba gear, and they scuba dove in the pool. That's the whole story, everybody. I had nothing else for that story for you, but that's what I know of scuba diving. That's how much scuba diving I know. We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna go to commercial. When we come back, we're gonna talk Barbados. We're gonna talk nonprofit. We're gonna talk about evolving, gang. We're gonna talk about growing and just continuing to touch and feel and see what the world has to offer because it is really cool. By the way, let's go Mets. We'll be right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
I mean, we're talking about baseball, talking about Barbados, we're talking about evolution. I hear on the commercials, Sam Leibowitz, the conscious consultant, right? I hear professional serving community. That's what we do here on talkradio.nyc. There's just so much going on, man. Sophia, I shared the website because we're going to get into the company at some point soon, but talk to me about Barbados. Like, what is that like? I mean, I always see these people, like, we go to vacation to these places and I go, people actually live here. Like, people like live here. Like, people like, I have a friend of mine, Dr. Dorothy Martin Neville. She's great. She's got an incredible story. She's up she's from Southie, Boston, South Boston. And she was a nun. She was a flight attendant, air attendant. What do we call them? Folks now who work on the plane, like flight attendant, stewardess is what she was. That's what we called it. And she lived in like Grenada, maybe for like, or she was like married to like the president of Grenada for like a couple of years. Like, people live in these places. Tell me about your mom living in Barbados, real quick. Just a quick story.
Real quick.
Yeah.
People live obviously all over the world, which
Right.
is something that I think as Americans, we don't spend enough time thinking about, and my mother at the time worked for the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. It's been in the news a lot. And so she was really pursuing her life's dream was to have a career. And she had raised my brother and me when we were little, but she wanted to do her thing. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
So she moved down there, and then I spent a lot of time going from, when we were on vacation or in the summer, I worked at the USAID office. I was the receptionist.
Wow.
So when people would come to the door, they would, I would announce them on the PA system. I mean, everyone has to remember there was no internet, no cell phone. It was a totally different world. I had a switchboard that I had to push the buttons, and I had to say that was one of the jobs I wasn't really good at. I wasn't really good at another job I had right after college, which was working in the Art Institute of Chicago jewelry desk, trying on jewelry for people and trying to get them to buy it. I wasn't good. But we're honing in on the two jobs that I didn't do well, but I did I did have the career that's on LinkedIn.
The show is not called "How Did You Fail?" Like that's
Right,
well,
exactly.
I joke with you, but because listen, we got to talk about failing just in general because we find out what we're not good at, and either we want to pour in and get better at that, or we go, let me go over here where I'm really filled with bliss and I'm in flow, and let me go do that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And through the trials and tribulations of those internships, which I really encourage every young person to have a number of those trials and tribulations of doing jobs that either they really love, but maybe they're not well equipped to do going forward, or that they really don't like and know that they need to definitely avoid this in the future. You really find out a lot about yourself. But I, over time, graduated from those experiences to really being in the very, very large nonprofit sector. I got lucky in my jobs, and my first really big job was at a auction house in Chicago. I became I was started in the mailroom. I was the head of shipping. So the trucks would come in with all of the objects for consignment, and we'd unload the trucks. I worked with 9 guys. We had uniforms that were, got dirty all day, and then I would do all the ship manifests. I'd call the trucking companies, and that auction house experience was tremendous, and my first leadership experience because I started as this blonde girl, and in a group of guys, and I was able to become over time the vice president of the property department. And that's where I first really understood how to work across difference. I grew up with privilege. Many of the guys on my crew didn't. And we learned how to really work together, whether that was just the organizing everything or actually lifting the really heavy furniture. And they would teach me how to do that.
I have a couple questions about that. First of all, this is the silly question because did you guys wear jumpsuits like where it's like a onesie with a zip up?
No, we wore these jeans,
Okay.
black jeans, and a green, like Hanes t-shirt. Just
Okay.
didn't was not flattering with a belt.
All right. So the reason I ask is so I grew up listening to all types of different music, and I Beastie Boys was definitely somebody. My friend Krista Luca influenced me with the Beasties. I was more like Tribe Called Quest, Cypress Hill, Nirvana when that was like the thing. And I mean, I'm very, very varied, Tommy, but very varied taste in music. But like one time the Beasties had like they showed up in like just jumpsuits and it was and I want a jumpsuit. I'm
Mhm.
telling the world I want like a Dickies jumpsuit zip up
I
that just
have
says
one.
Tommy D on there. Why do you have
I
who knew
have
this?
one. I
Why
have one
would
from
this
the
happen in
Chicago
this?
Botanic Garden. So I have the full length, head to toe. I think it's Carhartt.
Yeah, Carhartt,
And
sure.
that I got because of the Chicago Botanic Garden. So I was CEO of the Chicago Botanic Garden in Chicago, one of the most amazing gardens in the world. And in the winter, all the crew would wear these super thick head to toe.
Yeah,
And I needed one of those.
I love that.
Yeah, so I use it. I use it in Chicago for plowing the snow, shoveling the snow. I did a lot of conservation work in a place that my family had in the rural part of Illinois, and so we would cut down buckthorn and honeysuckle in the winter with chainsaws, and I would wear that to keep warm and also to keep safe.
Dude,
So I have one.
what is this show about? Like this would people would ask right now. Like that's how we go. I get an idea in my head and you actually have one. Here and then I take it to another level. I'm like, dude, how fun would that be if we go to the Met game and you wear your thing and I go buy a jumpsuit? I don't know why, man. It's just what goes
Yeah.
through my brain. I see a bright red jumpsuit that says Tommy D, like a gas attendant in 1950 or something like that. zip up. Anyway, gang, they're like, what is he doing? See, that's what's great when it's your show, Sophia. I don't work for nobody. I could just have fun with my guests, and people keep coming back and listening. So I guess
I'm just following you here.
I listen.
I'm not a great dancer myself, but I'm a really great partner to a good
Yes.
dancer.
Well, I can't dance, but I try to sing sometimes. Anyway, I love
My
it.
husband would tell me immediately, do not sing along with him.
Yes. Well, you know what? He's no fun then. He doesn't know. It's not because listen, it's not about everybody else. It's about you. Like I want to play the Tommy D show, and that's that. And if you like, I have a daughter who is an incredibly talented singer, right? And I told her, I was like, listen, can we have the same singing teacher? And she was like, no, no, I don't want to like share my singing teacher. Anyway, I'll try to get back on. I keep trying. Do you see how we're going today? This is just we're all over the place.
Right.
This is it's a plain hooky today. I'm going to the Met game. It's opening day. I told you that before. So I'm on a hooky day. So I want to get into something you talked about though, that privilege piece. You know, you say you came somebody Jesse says philanthropy out of focus. Yeah, no kidding. Welcome to the show. So you talked about coming from privilege, and then you met people from a different socioeconomic situation when you were doing that work in the warehouse, right? Not to be silly, but was that like, we're not all exposed to what other people are dealing with and what other people's lots in life are. Was that something that changed you? Just the dynamic of working with people from different backgrounds and different economic situations, things like that.
Yeah, I think it also, yes, because of their generosity toward me, I think, because we all had to work together to get a job done. Another situation was that I was working at the Field Museum in Chicago, and the Field Museum is like the American Museum of Natural History, one of the big natural history museums in the world. And I was leading the exhibitions, temporary exhibitions program. So we were creating exhibitions from all over the world, from China. The Dead Sea Scrolls would come. I mean, it was those organizing, and I got promoted. I was young. I was 30. Let's say I was 34, something like probably wrong. Somebody go on LinkedIn, they'll say, Sophia, the math doesn't add up, but I'm like, just call it what it is for now. And I was promoted, and everybody who was reporting to me they were at least 10 years older. And there was this teeny little staircase I was walking up the day I was told I was being promoted, and I could hear them all talking about me at the top of the staircase. And they said, what will we report to this woman? First of all, she doesn't have any of the skills that we have. She's young, And I said to myself, oh my. So I said, I could either go back down the stairs, hide around the corner, cry, or I could go up the stairs. And I went up the stairs and I said, guys, I get it. You all have skills that I don't have. So my job is not to do your jobs. My job is to help get rid of the barriers.
Right on.
For you to do your job. And if you could just put your faith in me for a bit to see if I can do that for you, we're going to be good. And it worked out well. And those are some of the, the happiest memories I have at work.
What leadership there, just like leaning in and first of all, going up the stairs instead of doing the other, that right there is great. There's that whole piece of visual going up the stairs, because many of us would have walked away and cried and like perseverated on that for a week. Right. But you went after it as a leader and you said, I'm here to reduce friction. I'm here to support you, reduce friction so you can do what you got to do, and give me a shot, right? And I assume they did give you a chance, and then you excelled, and it sounds like it was a great team. That's, when we talk about this show, there's so many tidbits on this program that people pull from, best practices, top tips, things like that people can utilize in their world. It doesn't matter if you're, 10 years old, as one of my children is, and playing 3 different sports, that you can learn from this program. And it doesn't matter if you're 80 years old. And I was at a Rotary Club dinner last night, and the man who sat across from me was 81 years old. And I said, shame on me. I said, are you retired? He goes, no. He's 81 years old and he's running an organization. And I go, of course you are. Yeah, of course. That makes sense, right? But we can all continue to learn from each other. I want to get into some of the nuts and bolts, and we'll take one more break. We come back. Some of the nuts and bolts and some of your experiences. Certainly, aside from just having that jumpsuit, you had other things going on at the Botanic Garden, which I want to talk about the Botanic Garden, because, we got the Brooklyn Botanical Garden over here, not far from here, but we got Queens Botanical Society with all those cool things. I want to know what that actually looks like, because when we hear nonprofit, it's like, okay, that's social services or the MH, the mental health space, or IDD, individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities. It's also nature, it's conservancy and things like that. So I want to get into that when we come back, and then we will pivot that, as they say, into PlanPerfect and some of the solutions that and why PlanPerfect even exists. So let's come back from that. We'll go to Chicago, my kind of town. That's not the lyrics. We'll be right back. Go to break. Hey, everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
All right, let's go. Let's go to Chicago. So one weekend, my cousin was living out there. He was living on a place called School Street in Wrigleyville. And we went out there to visit him. And we went to a Cubs game and we went to a Sox game in that weekend. And it was like, wow, these are different places. Yeah. And this is my drinking days, so I don't remember all the tidbits and details because, gang, as you may know, hashtag ending the stigma together, whatever that stigma might be, not just mental health, but 14 years I haven't had a drink. I think everybody needs to walk their own journey, do their thing. But I encourage you, if that's your thing and you need to stop doing that because it ain't good for you, then don't do it anymore. That's all. That was easy. That's the pitch. So I want to hear about Chicago. Let's hear about the Botanical Garden, that whole story. Let's talk about conservation too.
Great. Chicago is just the greatest city. And one of the things that makes me the saddest, actually, the news world today is how the news has taken this real big pot shot at Chicago and really highlighted the bad things that happen there, which are happening everywhere. So, and they always have. So Chicago's a great city. We're right on Lake Michigan, and a lot of people from the East and West Coast come to Chicago and they say, what's that thing out there? Is that the ocean? No, that's the Great Lakes are the source of the fresh water of the world. It is, the whole world, but it is a very special place. And Lake Michigan offers the opportunity for people to swim, bike, run, and really connect people to nature. The Chicago Botanic Garden is actually about 19 miles north of downtown Chicago. It's 400 acres. So if you've been to Brooklyn or the New York Botanical Garden or Queens, the great botanical gardens in New York, this is physically bigger. It's about the size and the scope of the New York one and the Bronx because it has science, education, community programs, and this incredible visitor experience that welcomes over 1 million people a year. It's funny, I haven't been in the shoes to talk about it for a while because haven't been CEO for 10 years, but it's a great place to talk about conservation and connection to the world. I've been intrigued by listening to the ads here on your call about connection with spirit and a botanic garden, or whether it's just a big place like that, or whether it's a flower on your windowsill, is tremendously grounding. And the connections that we can make with the land, with ourselves, and with other people in nature I feel they're second to none. Talk about meditation. Maybe somebody isn't ready yet to start a meditation practice. I mean, like you and I have, right. But they are able to maybe turn off their phone for 20 minutes and take a walk in nature, and that's called forest. You can do forest bathing. Really connect to people and plants. The Chicago Botanic Garden, among others, also has tremendous programs in community agriculture, community health, working with health partners. So it was the happiest 10 years professionally until now. Now that I've been working with Adam on PlanPerfect, work, the 24/7 kind of work. My kids grew up there, so to speak, under, coming to the garden. Oh, a good story there is they were little. They were 3 and 4 when I became CEO. And I had to hand it to the directors, the board, which we could talk about boards of trustees later,
Yeah.
boards of directors. But the board to hire a 30, again, 7-year-old woman
2
with
young
2
kids.
tiny kids.
Yeah.
You got to hand it to that group of men
Yeah.
to have done that.
They saw something, right? And obviously, and took a shot. But interesting that you bring that up, because it's the beginning of April, so we just came out of is it International Women's Month or Women's Recognition Month and things like that. In your own experience, that is, I'll ask, is that empowering? Do you see that as a great story to tell to other young women coming up and other older women going through different things, just to, you can have it all. You can run an organization, you can have your children. And again, it's all about organization too, I guess. But can you talk about that since it came up?
Right. I think, sure, you can have it all. There is always going to be a cost.
Yeah.
I mean, there is going to be a cost someplace. Something I've been really giving a lot of thought to, though, is things are moments in time. So when my PlanPerfect co-founder, Adam, and I talk about, wow, we're working 7 days a week right now. This is really a lot. It's intense. We're meeting on the weekends on Zoom and co-working there. And that's his word. I'm not, the millennial co-working word I'm trying to adopt. This is a moment in time. So yes, you can have it all if you really think of it. This is a moment in time. I'm CEO. I've got 2 little kids. I'm trying to maintain good relationships with my partner, my friends, but it is not easy, and you need real help to do that. Real help from community, and to go back to the philanthropy and focus. This is where we really, again, I had the ability, running a big institution, making a healthy salary with the support of my board and 250 full-time people, to have it all. But that's not what most women have. That's not what most fathers have, or mothers, or parent teams. They don't have it all because they are struggling to put food on the table. And they're struggling to keep themselves healthy and give their children a better life than they had. And that's why so many of these nonprofits that you feature on your show, Tommy, are so worthy of our investment, and so worthy of having the kinds of plans that we're trying to work on it with the company we founded. The reason I moved to the topic earlier about going to big organizations, I've always been in big ones, is that I think we give short shrift to the small nonprofits sometimes, and these small nonprofits are really doing incredible work, and they're nimble and connected, community minded, and really make up the framework. We can have the great Chicago Botanic Gardens and the ones in New York and the big museums, and those are wonderful. But where a lot of the magic is made in the world is with these little ones.
And there's so many, and it's such a pyramid too. And we think of that, the majority of the organizations are much smaller. I don't know. I'm not going to give stats right now, but a far majority of organizations are less than 10 million in revenue. And I laugh because many more less than $1 million, in annual budget for organizations. And I've featured many of those on the show here. Let's dive into, I mean, listen, there's so much we can get into. One quick question, and then I really want to get into PlanPerfect and how you and Adam came up with this and why it is a thing. But with the triathlon thing, it's funny how things happen, because I looked it up before, and then you said there's so much to do in Chicago: swim, bike, run. And I just Googled what is a triathlon, because I remember there's like a thing with a rifle. And I said, I think there's shooting in that. There's no shooting in a triathlon. That must be something else I made up. But swim, bike, run. So there's all that connection. Tell me about the triathlon, and then let's take that, or just your interest there and coaching.
Yeah.
and then into PlanPerfect, please.
I think that the triathlon and the open water swimming is actually very related to PlanPerfect and how we ended up here. I was going through a pretty big mental health crisis, and I feel comfortable saying that on your show because it's something that you focus on. When I was getting divorced from my kids' wonderful dad, and I was really in a bad place. It was really sad, and I didn't know how to cope with those feelings. And I decided that maybe I would try to go for a run. Okay, I've never been for a run in my life. I've never been an athlete, whatever it was. I was 44 years old, let's say. I could not run I couldn't run 250 yards. I could not do it. It was not happening. So over the next 2 weeks, I tried to run 1 mile and it took me 19 minutes.
Okay.
And then I tried to run one mile every other day. I think that went on for a year. And then I, at some point, had no ambition of being an athlete in my, late 40s. No one even talks about the fact you can become an athlete in your late 40s and early 50s. I mean, people think, oh, you can become an athlete when you're 10, like, your kids, but not like when you're old. And so I ran 2 miles, and then a couple years later, somebody said, well, could you think you could run 5? And I tried 5, and then I said to my husband, like, what's the longest distance you've ever run? He said, 5 miles. I said, well, I'm going to run 8 miles. And I run 8, and then somebody said you could run a half marathon. Anyway, you get the picture. And now I've run 5 marathons, which has been fun. But the triathlon part, it's about the water. So the part of every triathlon that people freak out about, because it's swim and then bike and then run, is this open water part. You're going into open water. It's not like swimming in a pool.
Right.
And so in getting into that cold water, I felt this just rebirth, this intense overcoming of so many of the sad things. And I did it for a bit myself, but then I had no real ambition to becoming a triathlete. And then I was at Kellogg and trying to think about my next step and trying to fuse together. This was during COVID. So remember, let's not all forget that COVID was a huge mental health disaster. And I was talking to somebody and said, well, what do you about trying some work with adaptive sports? And I hooked up with this incredible organization called Dare to Try, which is the country's largest adaptive sports organization working with para athletes in triathlon. And it changed my life. And I work in the clinics and work with people doing all sorts of sports, but mostly swimming. And then I became involved with a great New York organization called Achilles International. And Achilles, you can see, I'm sure if you go anywhere in New York City, you see the bright yellow.
Yeah, I think so I have a very good friend over at the Queen Center for Progress, QCP, which is I'm pretty sure my friend Wendy Pfaff Gennaro does some work with Achilles. They are one of the CP organizations. Historically, we're the cerebral palsy organizations here on Long Island. We have CP Nassau and UCP of Long Island, et cetera, et cetera. But I just pulled up the website for Dare to Try. So it's DARE2 TRI as in triathlon.org. There's so much here. We're gonna have you back because I got a million other questions about this. So I'll threaten you with a good time. You come back if you want to. I wanted to ask you more about that, but what a blessing. The thing that would scare me would be the swimming too, because look, if I'm running, I can stop and sit down. If I'm biking, I can stop and put the bike down. If I'm swimming, I can't freaking stop, man, because then you don't breathe anymore when you go under the water. That doesn't work.
Exactly.
That's the one. I think it's a good on them. Whoever came up with this, they do that first. Is it always the swimming is always first in these things?
For the vast majority of them. And you can stop. This is the key. This is the key. You can stop by going in what I call a starfish position. You lie on your back, like in a starfish.
Yeah.
And you just breathe. And you can just try this in your pool, whatever. It's very helpful for anybody who's overcoming any kind of anxiety or depression. It's just you can trust yourself. You can do it. I mean, some people sink if they're too lean or whatever. You could just put something around your belt, a belt or something you can stand up. But
yeah,
it's really good for you. But all of these experiences together one day, Adam and I were working together in a different project, and we said, there's nobody really out there helping these small to mid-sized nonprofits figure out how to go forward, how to track what they're doing, how to make a plan, how to figure out how to measure the metrics of their success in an affordable way. And that's how PlanPerfect was born. So, when you get to be a certain age, like I am, you can say your whole life has been leading up to something, and that's how I feel right now.
I love it. Hindsight is 2020. They say we're going to take a quick break real quick. As we come back, I really want to dive into this product, what it does, how it helps teams, how it helps nonprofit organizations, how it's from a strategic planning. We hear those words, strategic planning, all the time in the sector, but you all are making it, I'll just go with adaptable for smaller organizations, since we're on that adapted thing. Let's take a quick break. We'll come right back and we will talk more on the organization PlanPerfect and how it helps. Right back.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Sometimes when somebody writes a book, they have like a subtitle, or they like the extra title. Like they make it like, this is, Philanthropy and Focus, where I help nonprofit executive leaders tell their story and amplify their message. And then it should say, in parentheses, it should say, we always run out of time. We never run out of things to talk about. That should be like the subtitle of the show. So, gang, if you're writing a book about Tommy D, that's what it should be called. All right, strategic planning. Why is it important, really? I mean, the website, by the way, is planperfect.co, planperfect.co. And one of the things I was highlighting while we were at break there, while our name is PlanPerfect, we understand that even when things aren't going perfectly, they can still be going right. What matters is the journey and the thought you put into creating the best possible strategic plan for your organization is just as important as the final product. So when perfection may not exist, PlanPerfect gets you close. I like this. So who is this for, and what is it?
It is for small to mid-size nonprofits who are trying to do good work in the world. So that is, that's a broad net. We're saying the website about $10 million and under, but it can really work for any organization that has a pretty clear focus, or has a clear understanding of where they want to go and what they want to do. We really empower nonprofits to plan for the future, and also, and this is really important right now, adapt to change. Because if you just have a plan that you did because somebody told you had to do, and then it was a horrible process, and it took too long, and it was too expensive, and you weren't tracking it, it's not leading you toward the future, and nor is it adaptable and agile when circumstances change, when COVID happens, when there are tremendous cuts in the sector. So our working theory and what we are manifesting in the software of PlanPerfect is that strategic planning should not be painful. It actually should be empowering and fun. That strategic plans should be used as living documents, not just presented and put in some cloud folder that nobody can ever find because they get, panic attack looking through their files because they're not organized, and then somebody leaves and the system crashes. Like, that's not helpful to anybody. They should be like building momentum, not just filling in boxes. And I sometimes think we, in strategic planning or planning of any kind, even life planning or planning where we're going to go on a trip or anything, we confuse complexity with sophistication. Like, we really believe that clarity is what helps people move forward. So having a good plan that is short and visible and updated regularly, and that everybody on the board and on the staff can talk to, is how decisions are made, and how we make impact, how we help those people that you highlight on your show, and not just those people, but all of us, to be a more healthy community.
When I thank you for all that. When I hear people say, words have meanings, but they also create responses in our feelings. And when I hear strategic planning, sometimes it sounds like a daunting task. And maybe that's just because contextually that's what I hear people talk about. We had another strategic planning meeting. We're doing our strategic plan. And it's like,
Right.
oh baby, are we building a skyscraper? Or are we giving ourselves, and correct me if I'm wrong, but an outline that is a living document that builds momentum that we can go back to and tweak and erase and cross out and rewrite in the margins, which I think a lot of your program can do you don't actually need a pen and a pencil. But that sounds more to me like, like whether it be a life plan for me as a human being or a life plan for our organization as it relates to development, sustainability, succession planning, all that stuff, we can write in pencil. Right? Like,
Right. We can. And, even a show like this, which, Tommy, is really fun to be on because it's free flowing and full of energy. We planned this.
yes.
We talked a couple months ago. We put it on the calendar. Your team followed up with me. We talked yesterday. We planned this. This is not just life. There is a tremendous amount of spontaneity to life, thank goodness, but you have to have some kind of plan in place. So our software helps you create that plan. You create an account with us, and you can do a whole interview, a survey function of the people, your constituents, your stakeholders, your board, your people you serve. You can get to hear what they think through a really beautiful interactive tool, doing interviews, surveys. There's an AI component to that. Then you can create your plan. So the large language model is something that is enclosed to our software that I help program with Adam. So it's all of the information that I learned over the course of the years. I led the big nonprofit program at Kellogg Business School. It allows you to review the plan, and allows you to share it on your website, and allows you to track it. So it's a light project management tool. You can send it to your board in advance. We're trying to be there for the nonprofit leader and their board, in the same way as you're here for the nonprofit sector, or I'm there in the water when somebody needs to starfish.
Hearing a lot about that from what you're saying. I don't know if my dog's voice is coming across. Do you hear Cheeto in the background? Is he going bananas? Okay, so it's like when the elephant's in the room, you got to call it out. When the Cheeto's in the attic, you got to call it out because I'm hearing him. I didn't know if everybody else was. So thanks, Cheeto. But I think what I'm hearing from you is coaching, support, right? You say in the water, you say what we do on the show, propping up, supporting, helping stand up these organizations. I want to get to this quick piece about the board and how involved the board members are in this process generally and with PlanPerfect.
Right. The board should absolutely be part of the process, as one of the key fundamental responsibilities of any board is to help guide the strategic plan. I mean, the executive director is leading to implement it, but the board has to be on the same page, or else you can't get any support around it or fulfill the goals of the organization. And one of the board's ultimate responsibilities, in addition to providing financial oversight and protecting the assets, the fiduciary roles of the board, is to make sure that a strategic plan is in place and that the leader, the paid leader, is executing on that plan together with their staff.
So have you seen many of the organizations that, and we're going to run out of time, but many of the organizations that you engage with early on, the smaller ones, had they not had any strategic plan in place?
Some of them have had no plan. So actually, I met a young man from Prairie Land Adaptive at a paratriathlon clinic last summer, and we started chatting, and he was our first customer, and he went from zero to a real program. And then we have other people who come in with a plan. They know where they're going, but they want to use PlanPerfect for tracking. So looking at their metrics and impact going forward.
So it could really serve at different levels. It could be an organization that understands strategic planning. Maybe they have an outside consultant, or, and they want to use the product. We didn't really go through the nuts and bolts of the products. If somebody wants that, do they go to planperfect.co? Do they reach out to you or Adam? What's the best way to connect?
Yes, and go to the website. There are links there to schedule demos with us. We'd love to have demos all day, share with you what we have. And we're also happy to give a 10% discount on the pretty affordable prices as it is now to anybody who mentions hearing our talk on your show today.
Oh my God, it's like hashtag Tommy D and you get a discount, gang.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. Well, listen, I'm so jazzed that you're my friend now. I mean, the nonprofit resource hub brought us together, but I have pages of notes. I take notes while I host the show. Yes, gang, take notes. It's how I remember stuff. But even if I don't read them, by the actual act, I was trying to teach my son this the other day, act of taking them, it puts them in, I don't know what it's called, but it puts them inside of my brain. We'll look it up later. We'll Google it. But the thing about it is I've taken so much notes because I feel very connected to you in so many different ways. We've had so many cool parts and tangents in this conversation. And I believe if I say life begins outside your comfort zone, I believe my life begins inside of the tangent zone, similar to the Twilight Zone, but it's called the tangent zone. Hey, Tommy D, let's make another show. We'll call it that. Sophia Shaw, thank you for being here. Thanks for all you're doing in the world. Thank you. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to the whole team at the Nonprofit Resource Hub, Allison LaFrelita, our executive director, Kellyanne Serini, and thank you. And, my team always does good on opening day. So let's go Metsies. Let's have a great 2025. Who knows? Later in the season, we might see the Chicago Cubs and the Mets playing some baseball together. I would love that. Yeah. Everybody, make it a great day. Sophia, thanks for being here. I'll see you guys next week.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.